Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Soulful Saturdays with Saylor. Around here, we cut through the noise, ditch the fluff, and dive straight into what matters. Spiritual wellness, radical self-acceptance, and unapologetic soulful living. Each week, I'll bring you truth with a side of sass, reflections that wake you up, and reminders that you are glorious. So, whether you've got your journal, your coffee, or that wild, messy bun, you are exactly where you need to be. Hey, you. Hello, hello. Thank you for being here, beautiful soul. I want to ask you something. Not one of those where you answer me really quickly because you think you know where I'm going. I mean, one of the questions that deserves a little honesty. So here it is. Are you feeding the woman you used to be or the woman you're becoming? Mm-hmm. Think about that for a second because those are two different diets. Now, before you start thinking I'm talking about kale, protein shakes, or counting calories, just relax. We're talking about something so much deeper. I'm talking about what you're feeding your heart, your mind, your soul, your confidence, your peace. Because whether you realize it or not, every single day you're feeding something. You're feeding your fears or your faith. You're feeding your excuses or your courage. You're feeding your inner critic or the inner cheerleader. And here's the thing, beautiful. Whatever you feed grows. Now, here's where it gets a little uncomfortable. One diet keeps you comfortable, predictable, safe, familiar. Even if familiar is exhausting, even if familiar is keeping you stuck, because let's be honest, sometimes we choose what we know over what's actually good for us. We stay in relationships we've outgrown. We keep telling the same old story. We replay the same negative thoughts. We keep people happy while slowly making ourselves miserable. Why? Why, you may ask? Because it's familiar, and our brains love familiar, even when familiar isn't healthy. But then there's another menu, the one your future self keeps trying to hand you. And let me tell you, she orders very differently. She chooses peace over proving. She chooses boundaries over burnout. She chooses growth over comfort. She chooses truth over people pleasing. And sometimes she chooses herself. Imagine that. Now, I know some of you just got a little twitch when I said that she chooses herself. Because somewhere along the way, we were taught that choosing ourselves was selfish. And it's not, my beautiful friend. And can I lovingly call it out, please? That's nonsense. That's nonsense. You cannot pour in anyone else's cup while yours is bone dry. Eventually, all you're serving is exhaustion. The woman you're becoming, she knows better. She doesn't abandon herself just to keep everyone else comfortable. She doesn't apologize for protecting her peace. She doesn't shrink just so someone else can feel better. And I say this with as much love as possible and, well, yeah, a little bit of sailor sass because deep down, you already know this. You know where you've been settling. You know what's been draining you. You know what no longer is serving you. You've been waiting for someone to remind you that it's okay to choose differently. So maybe today, this is your reminder. So let's talk about what that actually looks like in real life. Because nobody wakes up on Tuesday morning, pours a cup of coffee, looks in the mirror and says, you know what? I think today I'll abandon myself. Hmm. Nobody says that. Nobody plans to settle. Nobody puts lose myself on their to-do list. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly, little by little, choice by choice, thought by thought. And until one day you wake up and wonder, when did I stop feeling like me? See, that's how it works. The old version of us rarely leaves with a dramatic goodbye. She lingers. She whispers. She convinces us that staying the same is somehow safer than becoming someone new. Maybe it looks like staying in habits that we've already outgrown. You keep saying, this is just who I am. And deep down inside, you know it isn't. Maybe it is saying yes again. Even though your calendar is full, your energy is gone, and your soul is waving a little white flag saying, please, no more. Maybe it's replaying the same story that you've been telling yourself for years. I'm not enough. I'm old. I'm too late. I'm too much. I'm too qualified. Beautiful soul, can I lovingly interrupt that story for just a second? Those aren't facts. Those are leftovers. Leftovers from a version of you that's no longer in charge. That one needed to be said because so many of us keep feeding beliefs that should have expired years ago. And you know how milk has an expiration date. So do lies. And some of us are still sipping on thoughts that should have been thrown out a long time ago. Now, that was definitely a little sailor sass. And I'm going to give you a little bit more because here's the truth. Sometimes we choose familiar over aligned, not because familiar feels good, but because familiar feels predictable. Our brains love predictable, even when predictable is keeping us stuck. It's why people stay in relationships that drain them, jobs that no longer fit, friendships that have been one-sided, thought patterns that steal their joy, because at least they know what to expect. Growth? Growth is uncertain. Growth asks something of us. Growth stretches us. Growth whispers, come with me. And fear? Oh, fear has a megaphone. Fear says, don't risk it. Growth says, you're ready. Fear says, what if I fail? Growth smiles and says, what if you finally become the woman that you've been praying to become? Do you hear the difference? One voice wants to protect who you've been. The other is inviting you into who you're meant to be. And here's the part that I really don't want you to miss. Your future self has different standards. She doesn't argue with what constantly drains her. She doesn't negotiate with people who only value her when she's overgiving. She doesn't keep apologizing for taking space. She doesn't entertain every negative thought that knocks on the door of her mind. She simply says, no, thank you. Not today, not anymore, because peace became more valuable than pleasing everyone else. And somewhere along the way, that woman stopped asking, what do they want from me? And she started asking, what do I need to flourish? Can you imagine living from that question? What do I need to flourish? Not survive, not just get through another week. Flourish, bloom, live gloriously. That's the woman you're becoming. And every choice you make today is setting another place at the table. You're either feeding her or you're accidentally feeding the version of yourself that you've been trying so hard to outgrow. Beautiful soul, choose wisely because the woman you're becoming is hungry and she deserves so much better than the leftovers of yesterday. So let's shift this gently, but clearly, because here's what I don't want you to do after listening to this episode. I don't want you to think that you have to wake up tomorrow and completely reinvent your life. Please don't do that. Don't go throwing everything away, making 17 vision boards, buying a new planner, changing your hairstyle, and announcing on social media that you're a brand new woman by breakfast. Now, if you want a new planner, I'm not going to stop you. You know I love a good planner. But real transformation, it doesn't happen because of one dramatic decision. It happens because of hundreds of tiny ones, tiny choices, tiny shifts, tiny moments when you quietly decide, I love myself too much to keep choosing what keeps hurting me. That's where change begins. Not with pressure, not with perfection, but with permission. Permission to choose differently because every single day life hands you choices. Sometimes they seem so small we barely notice them. Do I rush or do I breathe? Do I criticize myself or offer myself grace? Do I keep saying yes when I really mean no? Do I scroll for another hour or spend 10 quiet minutes listening to what my heart has been trying to tell me all week? These little moments, they don't feel life-changing. They are, because your life isn't built in big moments. It's built in the ordinary Tuesdays, the random Wednesday afternoons, the quiet Saturday mornings when no one is watching you. That's where your future is being written, one choice at a time. So maybe, just maybe, it's time to start nourishing something different. Choose peace. Even if chaos feels familiar, you know that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, can I lovingly add a Sailor sassy version? If it steals your peace, it's already broke. If it steals your peace, it's already broke. Peace isn't something that you earn after you've made everyone else happy. Peace is something you protect. Then choose growth. Even when comfort keeps calling your name, because, comfort is sneaky. Comfort says, just stay here. Comfort says, maybe next month. Comfort's going to say, you've waited this long. And comfort may also say, it's not that bad. Comfort has 1,000 excuses. Growth only needs one invitation. Then choose alignment over approval. Choose alignment over approval. Because I know some of us have spent years collecting approval like it's an award, trying to make everyone happy, trying to avoid disappointing everyone, trying to earn love by overgiving, over-functioning, over-explaining, over-apologizing. Beautiful soul, it's exhausting. And somewhere along the way, we forgot something really important. Not everyone has to understand your boundaries in order for them to be healthy. And not everyone has to agree with your growth for it to be right. And not everyone is supposed to go where God is taking you. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is simply saying, this is who I'm becoming. And I'm okay if everyone doesn't come with me. Yeah, let that settle in for a minute. Because this is where something begins to change. Not with fireworks, not with some magical Monday morning motivation, but in the tiny daily choices that nobody applauds. What you watch, what you listen to, what your conversations you entertain, what thoughts you rehearse, what stories you continue telling yourself. Who gets access to your energy? Who gets access to your peace? And perhaps the biggest one of all, how you speak to the woman staring back at you in the mirror. Because here's something that I've learned. You become the voice you listen to the most. So if you're constantly feeding yourself criticism, you'll grow insecurity. If you constantly feed yourself compassion, you'll grow. You're going to grow. If you're constantly feeding comparison, you'll grow discouragement. But if you begin feeding yourself truth, grace, hope, joy, compassion, possibility, something beautiful starts to bloom. You begin trusting yourself again. You begin believing in yourself again. You begin recognizing the incredible woman God has been shaping all along. You don't accidentally wake up one day and become her. You nourish her. One thought, one choice, one boundary, one brave step, one beautiful act of self-respect at a time. Because every single choice you make today is casting a vote for the woman you're becoming. So here's my question for you. Who are you voting for today? Every single choice you make today is casting a vote for the woman you're becoming. So who are you voting for? I know who I'm voting for. So let's take a minute and let's pretend that we're taking a little walk together. Maybe we're walking through the park with a cup of coffee in our hands. Maybe we're sitting on the front porch watching the sun come up. Or maybe we're listening while we're driving to work. Wherever you are, I'm really glad that you're here because this conversation that we're having right now, it's one I think every woman needs to have with herself. You ever notice how easy it is to feed the old version of you? She doesn't require much effort. She's automatic. She already knows the routine, and she knows exactly what she craves. A little overthinking before breakfast, a side of self doubt about lunch, a full serving of compassion after scrolling social media, a midnight snack of replaying every conversation you've had all day, wondering if you said the wrong thing. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. The old version of us has quite the menu. She loves second guessing. She loves people pleasing. She loves saying yes when every cell in her body is definitely screaming, girl, absolutely not. She loves an apologetic. She loves apologizing for things that don't even require an apology. She loves shrinking herself so everyone else feels comfortable. Mm-hmm. We may want to laugh at that one for a second. That's right. She loves shrinking herself so everyone else feels comfortable. Because some of us apologize when someone else bumps into us at the grocery store. We're over here saying, oh, I'm sorry. For what? Existing? No, ma'am. You're not doing that anymore. Now, that is seriously a dose of Sailor sass, I just want to say. But think about it. How many times are you saying, I'm sorry? I was in the store the other day and there were women all around me we were coming in contact with one another. And the first things that we are saying to one another is, oh, I'm sorry. Seriously, we need to stop that. Most of these habits didn't start because we were weak. They started because somewhere along the journey, we learned that being everything for everybody somehow made us valuable and to apologize for existing. We learned that. We learned to earn love, to earn approval, to earn acceptance, to earn belonging. We became experts of taking care of everyone else and beginners of taking care of ourselves. And I certainly hope that hits home because I know it did for me. There were seasons in my life when I could tell you exactly what everyone else needed. But if someone asked me, hey, Cindy, what do you need? I'd stare at them like I was speaking like another language. Isn't there something? We become so fluent in everyone else's needs that we forget our own. That's not selfish. That's self-forgetting. And those are two different things. Here's what nobody tells us, though. The woman we're becoming has different nutritional needs. No, I'm not talking about proteins and veggies. Although your water, okay, your fruit yourself will thank you. I am talking about the emotional nourishment, mental nourish, spiritual nourish. Because just like your body becomes what you constantly feed it, so does your life. Your mind is always eating something every day, every hour, every minute. So what are you feeding it? Are you feeding it the news that leaves you anxious? Conversations that leave you drained? Voices that constantly tell you that you're behind? Comparisons that convince you that everyone else has it figured out except for you? Are you feeding your mind truth, hope, wisdom, curiosity, possibility? Because whatever sits at the table with your mind every day eventually becomes your thinking. Now, let's talk about those emotions. What have you been feeding those lately? Resentment, guilt, shame, disappointment? The story that says I should be farther along by now? And can I challenge that one? Who made the timeline? Seriously, who decided you had to have your life perfectly figured out by 30 or 40, 50, 60? Because I am sure I didn't get that memo. Life is not a race. It's not a relationship. Actually, no, it is a relationship. Think about it. A relationship with yourself, a relationship with God, a relationship with becoming. Yes, it's a relationship. So stop measuring your progress against someone else's highlight reel. Your journey has never looked like theirs because your purpose never did either. And spiritually, can we just take a breath for a second? How's your soul doing? Not your schedule, not your calendar, not your productivity, your soul. Is she rested? Is she exhausted? Is she connected? Or has life become so noisy that you can't even hear your own heart anymore? When was the last time you sat in silence without reaching for your phone? When was the last time you simply listened? Sometimes God whispers, but we've gotten so used to the noise that we mistake silence for emptiness. And maybe, just maybe, silence is where we've been needing to eat. And here's the truth that changed so much for me. You cannot create a new identity while feeding the old one every single day. It simply doesn't work. It's like planting a beautiful flower and watering the weeds, then wondering why the weeds keep growing. Whatever you water wins, whatever you feed grows, whatever you practice becomes your normal. And I know this because I've lived it. There were seasons when I fed the old version of Cindy so well that she never had a reason to leave. I fed her fear, insecurity. I fed her perfectionism. I fed her people pleasing. I fed her the belief that my worth came from what I accomplished instead of who I really was. And guess what? I got stronger because that's what happens when you feed lives, when you starve weakens. Now, hear me carefully. The shift didn't happen because I finally got mad at myself. Shame has never transformed anyone into the woman that they were meant to become. Shame just keeps you staring at yesterday. Grace helps you build tomorrow. The shift came when I finally paused long enough to notice. I remember thinking, oh, there it is. I see it now. Not that I'm such a failure. Not why am I like this? It's like, I see it. Awareness is a beautiful thing because you can't change what you refuse to notice. And once I noticed, I could choose differently. Well, not perfectly, not overnight, not with some magical life makeover, just different. One conversation, one boundary set, check, check. One thought, one prayer, especially one act of courage. One tiny decision that whispered, I'm going to feed the woman I'm becoming instead of the woman I'm leaving behind. And here's what I've discovered. Those tiny decisions, they compound, just like little deposits into a savings account. You don't notice much after day 1 or week 2, but keep making those deposits. Keep choosing peace. Keep choosing truth. Keep choosing yourself. Keep choosing what aligns with the life that you want to live. One day you're going to wake up and look in the mirror and you're going to smile and you're going to realize I'm not who I used to be. Not because life got easier, but because you finally started nourishing the woman who had been waiting inside you all along. Beautiful soul, that woman has always been there. She hasn't disappeared. She hasn't given up on you. She's simply been waiting for you to finally start setting a place for her at the table. And today, I hope that's exactly what you do. So here is where we bring it all home. So go ahead, take a breath with me just for a second, because I don't want you walking away from today's conversation thinking, I have so much to fix. No, no, no. That's not what today's about. Today isn't about fixing you. It's about feeding you. There's a difference. Remember, somewhere along the way, we started believing that we were projects that needed repairing. That if we just worked a little harder, maybe read more books, or took another class, or lost 10 more pounds, made a little more money, or got everyone else's approval, then maybe we'd finally become enough. But what if you've been asking the wrong question? What if the question isn't, how do I fix myself? What if it's, how do I care for the woman I already am while becoming the woman God is calling me to be? Yes. Now that's a different conversation, because you don't need to become her someday. You don't need to wait until Monday. You don't need to wait for a new year or with the new journal or have the perfect routine or one of those color-coded calendars that honestly stresses some of us out anyway. You don't need motivation to magically arrive like it's delivering flowers to your front door. You simply need one new choice. That's it. One. Because one choice leads to another and another. And before you know it, you're living a life that once felt impossible. So today, feed her. When you choose rest instead of wearing exhaustion like a badge of honor, you feed her. And can we retire this phrase, please? I'll sleep when I'm dead. Oh, no, thank you. No, no, no. I'd actually like you well rested while you're gloriously living, that you are gloriously alive. When you choose honesty instead of pretending everything is fine, you feed her. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to say I'm struggling. It's okay to ask for help. Strong women do that. When you choose boundaries instead of carrying guilt around like it's a designer luggage, you feed her. And can I tell you something? Every time you say yes to something that dishonors your peace, you're often saying no to yourself. Think about that. Your yes has value. Don't hand it out like free samples at the grocery store. When you choose peace instead of proving yourself, you feed her. Because here's something I hope settles deep into your heart. You have nothing left to prove. You have nothing left to prove. Not your worth, not your value, not your lovability. You don't have to earn what you've already been yours all along. Now, will these choices feel uncomfortable? Absolutely. Growth almost always feels awkward before it feels natural. Think about learning to ride a bike. The first time, wobbly, unsteady, maybe even a few scraped knees. But you didn't decide bicycles weren't for you. You kept practicing. You trusted that eventually your balance would catch up with your belief. The same thing happens in life. The first boundary you set, it might feel uncomfortable. The first time you say no, your heart might race. The first time you choose yourself without apologizing, you may wonder if you're doing something wrong. You're probably doing something right because it's unfamiliar. Doesn't automatically mean it's wrong. And sometimes it simply means that you're walking on new ground. It means you're creating a new normal. It means you're teaching your heart that peace is safe, that joy is safe, that rest is safe, that being fully yourself is safe. And maybe no one has given you permission to become someone different. So let me be the first. You are allowed to be new. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to rewrite the story. You are allowed to dream bigger than ever did, like 5 years ago. You're allowed to release relationships that no longer honor who you're becoming. You are allowed to stop apologizing for growing. Flowers don't apologize when they bloom. The butterfly doesn't ask the caterpillar for permission before it flies. The sunrise doesn't say, I hope nobody minds if I shine today. It simply does what it's created to do. The sun, the butterfly, the flowers, they all do what they're supposed to do. So why should you be any different? You were never created to stay stuck in yesterday's version of yourself. You were created to grow, to bloom, to stretch, to heal, to become. And here's what I hope you remember after this episode is over. That you don't wake up one morning and suddenly become the woman that you've dreamed of being. You become her every single time you choose what nourishes your soul instead of what drains it. Every act of courage feeds you. Every moment of honesty feeds you. Every boundary feeds her. Every prayer feeds her. Every ounce of self-compassion feeds her. Every single choice is another invitation to become more of who you were always created to be. So, you don't wake up one morning and suddenly become the woman that you're dreaming of. You become her every single time you choose what nourishes your soul instead of what drains it. So don't wait for someday. Don't wait until everything is perfect. Don't wait until you feel ready. Just feed her today. Because the woman you're becoming, she's already reaching for your hand. All you have to do is take the next step. Now, before you take that step and before we say goodbye, can I leave you with one little nudge? Not a shove, not a guilt trip, just a gentle nudge from one friend to another. This week, I don't want you trying to change your whole life. I don't want you chasing perfection. And I definitely don't want you making another list of all the things you think are wrong with you. You spend enough time doing that. Instead, I want you to ask yourself one simple question every morning before your feet hit the floor. What would nourish the woman I'm becoming today? Ask yourself, what would nourish the woman I'm becoming today? That's it. Maybe the answer is rest. Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's drinking a glass of water before your third cup of coffee. Maybe it's finally making that phone call. Maybe it's finally saying no. Maybe it's saying yes. Maybe it's turning off the noise long enough to hear your own heart again. Maybe it's looking in the mirror and speaking to yourself the way that you speak to someone that you deeply love. Whatever your answer is, trust it. Because your future self isn't built in one giant leap. She's built in tiny, faithful choices that seem ordinary in the moment, but become extraordinary over time. And here's one more thing before we go. Stop waiting until you feel worthy to care for yourself. Worthiness isn't the prize at the finish line. It's the reason you begin. You matter today. Not when you lose the weight, not when you landed the job, not when everyone finally understands your decisions. Today, right now, exactly as you are, because the woman you're becoming isn't waiting for a better version of you. She's waiting for today's version of you to simply take her hand. So this week, feed your peace, feed your joy, feed your courage, feed your faith, feed your dreams, feed your soul. And every time you have a choice, ask yourself, is this feeding the woman I used to be or the woman I'm becoming? Then choose her again and again and again. Because one beautiful choice, repeated often enough, has the power to change your entire life. So I want to thank you for spending a little part of your day with me. I never take it for granted. If today's conversation spoke to your heart, do me a favor. Share this episode with another incredible woman who may need the reminder today. Because here's what I know. When one woman begins to nourish her soul, she gives another woman permission to do the same thing. And that's how we create something bigger than a podcast. That's how we create a movement. So be kind to yourself. Remember that you matter. And don't just dream about living a glorious life. Dare to live your glorious life. And that, my friend, is our episode on Feed the Woman You're Becoming. Thanks for tuning in, beautiful souls. Take this week to listen to the whispers and remember your soul knows the way. And as you move through the week, carry this truth in your heart. You are worthy, you are radiant, and your presence matters. And never forget, stay soulful, stay sassy, stay you. I'll see you next Saturday, beautiful soul. Same time, same vibe, same glorious energy.